Apple executives are already getting grilled on Capitol Hill about using location tracking software. Senate hearing began just a few minutes ago. We want to bring in Jim Berger. He's a partner with the law firm of Dow Lohnes. He specializes in privacy laws, and before that, he served as in-house counsel at Apple for 10 years. Jim, what would you be advising those executives at Apple today?
Well, I think the executives at Apple are probably already doing this, which is figuring out the technology to empower users to control their privacy and their information. I would be betting anything that the engineers back at Apple are working on solutions empowering users to protect themselves.
Right, that they have to get ahead of it before they're legislated into finding a solution.
Right. I mean, and that, of course, is the difficulty, because you're talking about some really able people who are members of Congress and senators, but they're not technologists. And, you know, at least when I was there, and I'm sure looking at the products today, Apple has terrific technologists who can help solve this problem if a solution isn't mandated by Congress.
All right. I guess the problem that many on Capitol Hill would say is, you guys didn't say this was a problem until we told you, until it became public. So why should we trust you to find a solution to it?
Well, I mean, this is the history of the tech industry, is finding solutions to problems, and sometimes it needs to be pointed out. I mean, I'm not privy to anything inside Apple on this issue, but I suspect that they've been working on the solution even before today, because people know that the privacy is really key and important to individuals.
Well, we do know that Apple said, you know, they've got a patch that's going to basically find some solution, not hold on to the information after a certain period of time, but they're still going to track the Wi-Fi tower, the Wi-Fi hotspots and the nearby wireless towers that triangulate basically where you are using your device. So if the danger is really the information that's collected, it's the possibility of whose hands that ends up in that we're all worried about.
Sure.
So how can Apple prevent that from being shared?
Well, I mean, it's Apple's information, and they control the operating system. I mean, that's one of the things that Apple's always done, is control the operating system. So they'll be able to create the software that will enable the users to prevent others from tracking.
Well, I know you've looked at some of the models that other organizations have adopted. Let's run through some of them. You say
Sure.
on privacy issues, the Mozilla model does not work, which is to say it basically just asks the site not to take personal information.
Right. Essentially what Mozilla has is what we call a flag. In other words, it's got a few bits in the transmission you said to a website requesting information, and essentially the bits say, don't track me. Now the question is whether or not that website's going to obey it. And what concerns me about that particular solution is that it would take a government mandate to enable, at least to try and control the websites. I mean, there are tens, if not hundreds of millions of websites out there. Not all are in the U.S. So the idea that the U.S. government can pass a technology mandate saying you have to obey a given, flag or symbol, sort of like walking into a store which has lots of video cameras for security and holding up a sign, "Don't video me." I mean, that's pretty useless unless the government mandates a particular technology.
Well, these are going to be international challenges, right? I mean, this is going to go beyond Capitol Hill. So privacy laws in Europe are going to be a complication, too.
Absolutely. That's why there's several keys to this, and the key is a technology that's self-executing. In other words, a browser which blocks the sending of personal information to websites unless the user says, yeah, you can track me, or you can take that kind of information. We're at the very early stages of this, and I think that there are some promising solutions out there.
But your solution is allowing the technology companies to create that themselves. Some would say, hey, look at the financial industry. We can't trust them to regulate themselves. They do need an outside regulator. So why would the tech industry be any different?
No, I'm not saying you don't have an outside regulator. The FTC already has unfair and deceptive practices authority. And if people say they're going to do one thing and do another to members of the public, FTC has jurisdiction to go after them, fine them, get injunctions against them. And I'm not saying that after some really good due deliberation that we don't pass a law that governs behavior, that talks about what websites can and can't do, but and defines things. Like, we don't know quite what personal identification is right now.
Right.
There are a lot of different definitions out there. So there's a role for the Congress to govern behavior.